Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Music Den. I'm your host, Armando Venditti. Hoping you guys are having a great day, and above all else, trying to looking after yourselves and one another because that is what's most important. Ladies and gentlemen, Ken and I are back with album anniversaries. We are looking at albums celebrating their 60th and 50th anniversaries for the month of April. We have four to talk about, two per decade. This is going to be interesting. First of all, before we get into the albums that we're going to be talking about, Ken, how the hell are you?
I'm doing great, Armando. How about you?
Oh, I'm doing wonderful for take two.
Excellent.
Inside joke, ladies and gentlemen.
Yes.
Ladies and gentlemen, again, we have four albums to talk about. Two albums from the 60s and two albums from the 70s. This is quite the list. Let's kick this off as I get to my notes with the Rolling Stones with the release of Aftermath. We are looking at the UK edition because up until this point, with bands like the Beatles and the Rolling Stones, between the North American and the British and European record companies, they would put different track listings. So we are looking at the UK version of Aftermath, released on April 15th, 1966, to Decca Records, London Records in North America. 14 tracks in total with a total playing time of 52 minutes and 23 seconds. Produced by Andrew Oldman, their manager at the time. We won't go into that association. Before I give my opinion, Ken, what is your view on this album?
Okay. Aftermath, Rolling Stones. I was 7 years old. Yes, Armando. Yes. Uh,
I
and
wasn't
you
even a
were,
twinkle. I wasn't even a twinkle in my
there
mother's
you go.
eye.
I love this period of the Rolling Stones. Um, and whereas uh, it wasn't I think the first Stones album I bought was Some Girls. But after buying that, I bought the double album of Hot Rocks,
All
which
right.
this is the early era of the Stones. I mean, I really do love it, and this is a really good, solid album for me. First of all, for me, the first four tracks are absolutely fantastic. And also they're very different from one another. It really showed what the Stones could do in those days, because uh, especially Lady Jane, the third track, really
Yeah.
juxtaposes what they're doing on the other tracks. And that track in particular is a great earworm. Um, when I was doing my notes for this video a few days ago, there was about a day and a half where that song was just kind of stuck in my head, and I was okay with that. Um, Also, for those first, it starts off with Mother's Little Helper, which is um, not unknown, shall we say.
Hmm.
And then the fourth track, Under My Thumb, which is I think a very popular Stones track from that time.
Classic. Classic.
But the
Yeah.
second song is a song called Stupid Girl, and that's kind of a bit of a deep cut, except for Stones fans, I think. But it's really catchy. The
Hmm.
Stones are really good at these hooks and these catchy songs. Um, Later on in the album, Out of Time and I'm Waiting, I think are outstanding tracks also. So for me, the album is a little bit heavy on the side A than side B,
Front loaded. Yeah. Yeah.
but that's okay. Um, like I say, there's good songs on here, and then let me put it this way: there are great songs, and there are good songs. As far as
Okay.
there's, I don't for me, there's no bad songs on this album, um, because the less than great songs, Flight 505, It's Not Easy, Take It or Leave It, What to Do, they're very indicative of what was going on in pop music at the time in the middle 60s. So this album offers for me really good hits or really catchy songs, but also a bit of a time capsule for the mid 60s. I didn't hear any of these when I was 7 years old because where I was living, I'm not even sure. For a long time, there were no rock stations. I grew up in the South, in the U.S. in the South. Plenty of choices of country western stations, but not so much of the rock and roll. So, and my parents didn't listen to it anyway. One of the standouts on this album is the song "Going Home."
11
Um,
minutes, 18 seconds. Yeah.
yeah, very unusual. It really is a jam. You'd almost wonder if they didn't record that live, but yeah, unusual for that time for an artist to have a song that long on an album, but it's really nice. So this album is very somewhat nostalgic for me. Like I said, I love early Stones, and this is for me. This is a very solid album.
Okay. Um, well, for me, you're right. The first four songs, you know, wonderful. Mother's Little Helper that starts it off, you know, and Mother's Little Helper are pills, darling. I mean, like that's what they were
That's
talking
right.
about. Um, which is quite, you would say, I would consider that a little bit taboo in terms of the subject matter.
Yep.
Stupid Girl's another good track. Lady Jane's a standout for me in terms of the arrangement, the use of the dulcimer, nice acoustic guitars. Even the vocals are sort of prominent in the mix.
Yeah.
And his enunciation, or I guess you'd say intonation, or no, diction, sorry, of the words, the way the way he's singing it, very unique, in my opinion. I like the track. Um, Under My Thumb, the use of marimba, courtesy of Brian Jones. He had a multi-instrumentalist in the band at that point. Uh, you know, Don't You Bother Me. When I'm hearing a nice use of slide guitar on that. And with Going Home, 11 minutes and 18 seconds. What band at that point in time had a track that lasted 11 minutes and 18 seconds, And I
Yeah.
believe you were telling me that there was an edit of this down to 3 minutes and change. Are you
I think
kidding me?
so. Yeah, I know.
Like, give me a break.
Well, right about that time in the song, you almost expect it
To
to,
fade
to fade out,
it out.
and they just keep going and going. It's like, oh,
Yeah,
which with
and
other songs and other artists that would not be a good thing, but it is here.
exactly. It is here. Okay. No, I mean, when I have in my notes for Going Home, when I'm hearing shimmering guitar on the intro, and the guitar and the rest of the track does have a bit of a country feel to it. But no, it's a good album. Would you, in terms of anyone wanting to get into the Stones, because you've got how many decades? You've got the 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s to pick from. Would you say this would Aftermath would be a good um, entry point for a new fan?
I think so. In general, however, I do think um, an early anthology like Hot Rocks would be better. Um, First of all, you get a lot of music for your buck
Oh
in
yeah,
that,
yeah, I
and
remember
this
that.
and the programming of those songs is very very solid. So you're getting a variety over several years to where you can see the development of their songwriting and recording too. Um, but if you had to choose a single regular studio album, yeah, this would be a very good start.
Okay, all right.
Good.
No, I remember Hot Rocks. My brother-in-law had it, so it would be one of those albums. He'd bring over like a stack of albums to listen to. That'd be one of
Yeah.
them, like on top of the stack, and it's a classic greatest hits release.
It is,
Okay,
and a good,
listen,
and it has a good sequel too.
more hot rods. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it does. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're moving on from one end of the spectrum to the other. This is a band I didn't even know existed until we started working, researching for this episode. God, The Seeds, self-titled, released in April of 1966 through G&P Crescendo Records, produced by Sky Saxon, with a total playing time of 34 minutes and 44 seconds, 12 tracks in total. Ugh. Um, okay, Ken, your opinion.
Okay, the Seeds. Once you've heard them, you can't unhear them. Um,
You try.
you
Believe
can
me,
try.
you
You can
try.
try. Yeah. Um, the Seeds are a really great example of the garage band movement of the 60s. Um, I've got a really nice collection of various anthologies and box sets of 60s music. And there's one track that's almost on every single one of them. And it's, I think, the sixth or seventh track on this,
Pushing
called
too hard.
Pushing Too Hard.
Yeah.
And so I've heard that a gazillion times. And so that kind of has a bit of a nostalgic element, but I'd never listened to a complete album until until researching this video. Yeah, this is definitely a. We talk about bands that we say, well, you really only need a greatest hits, you know.
You only
Um,
need 8 bars.
so,
So,
however, we get into new territory with the Seeds, and rather than saying you only need a greatest hits, I would say you only need the 45 version of Pushing Too Hard, and that will probably do you fine.
a one,
Unless you're particularly a fan of garage rock.
yeah,
And
it is.
there's a close relationship between in the 60s of garage rock and psychedelic rock.
Yeah,
And so you'll see that crossover there. But the thing about the Seeds is it is what it is. If you're into it, that's fantastic. If you're not, you can leave it. But there definitely was a market for it at the time.
hmm
Um, and so this album is kind of again a bit of a time capsule of what was going on in pop music in the mid '60s. The uh, it's a bit rough sonically. It's lo-fi production. The songs are barely more than two chords.
yeah,
Um, a lot of it just pretty much sounds the same.
it
Um,
does.
not that the songs are repetitive, but just sonically similar tempo,
Yeah,
similar mix, guitars and whatever. The
yeah,
vocalists definitely.
yeah.
Um, so it's an interesting listen, but but in order to sample the Seeds, I would rely or recommend that you rely on a streaming service and not actually shucking out the bucks for it.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you for that. When Ken was mentioning all you need was the 45 of Pushing Too Hard, I'd go one further and say a one-sided 45 of Pushing Too Hard. It does, compared to what was coming out at the time, with Revolver and the Rolling Stones with Aftermath. This does not sound good. It sounds like somebody got a two-track recording machine and sat in the garage with a case of beer and a couple of guitars and small amps and just in a drum kit and just started recording. Just like, okay, hit play. You ready? Okay, oh yeah, good enough. Let's go. Um, I mean, the vocalist, all due respect, is not good. Um, it was so bad it hurt my feelings. That's how bad it was to me. I'm sorry. I will say that the Seas is still together today, um, playing, but it's not. Yeah, it very amateurish recording of it. You can stream this on YouTube, and when I was streaming this on YouTube, the person who uploaded the file, you could hear them put the needle on the record, and it's the ticks and the pops of the grooves before the song started, and on the fade out. And the ticks and the pops as it faded out took over the music itself. It was louder than the music and more clear. Okay, and then I'm sorry. It's not a good album. I'm sorry. It has its place. I don't know where, but it has its place. So
That's right.
there you go. Ladies and gentlemen, we are moving from the
Ooh.
60s into the 70s, looking at two albums that are celebrating their 50th anniversaries respectively. And we have, as I look at my list here, the Ramones with Ramones self-titled, released April 22nd, 1976, recorded in January of 1976, released through Seymour Stein's own Sire Records through Warner Brothers Distribution, produced by Craig Leon and T. Erdely. I believe that's the way you say it. 14 tracks in total. Yeah, 14. With a whopping playing time of 29 minutes and 4 seconds, featuring the singles Blitzkrieg Bop and I Want to Be Your Boyfriend. Ken, what is your opinion?
Oh, sophomore year of high school,
Oh,
the
Lord.
Ramones.
Oh, Lord.
So I probably, unless you're under maybe 30, I think probably just about everyone has at least heard of the Ramones. But if you don't know what kind of music it is, let's look at some of the song titles, shall we?
Sure.
We've got Beat on the Brat, Judy is a Punk, Now I Want to Sniff Some Glue, I Don't Want to Go Down in the Basement, yeah, Chainsaw. Um, this is US. This is US flavor of punk. I think they're US. I think they're
Yeah.
United.
Yeah, from New York.
Um,
Yeah, New York.
so here we go. Um, Mid 70s, in comes punk and new wave.
Yeah.
The ironic thing is, by the time punk came to the US, the movement was over in England. It
Yeah.
really was a um, kind of a flash because so much of it was based on culture, British culture and stuff like that. However, um, the Ramones um, struck that chord in the U.S. Of course, punk was largely, not solely, but largely a response to the perceived arrogance of other genres like prog, progressive rock, and whatever, the
Yeah,
complexity, the all that. So they're bringing it back down to earth.
it was reactionary. Yeah.
It was very reactionary, and because um, uh, thinking, oh well, this is too highbrow. We need to bring this back down to the blue collar
Yeah.
uh, people, and so that's kind of what it was in the U.S.
Yeah.
And so they had moderate success, but then came um, the film Rock and Roll High School, which was what, 70,
79, I believe.
79? Okay, I keep wanting to say 78. But anyway, so still, 3 years later, gave the just really brought the Ramones and that music to the forefront because that's when it really entered popular culture much more wide, from the film and all of that. So basically, what the seeds were to the 60s, the Ramones are kind of the same thing for the 70s, basically. Um, very simple, two, maybe three chords.
if
There's,
that.
there's no sophistication in the playing. It's very fundamental and basic.
Very
It's
aggressive. Mm.
very aggressive, very rough. Now they weren't like British punks. They weren't spitting on their audience or anything like that. I don't think.
No.
But you've got your blue jeans, your leather jackets, your long hair in your face, and the dark sunglasses, and
Yeah.
which is a lot of a throwback to the '60s and the '50s. Um, so a lot to say about this Ramones album is take what we said about the Seeds, copy, and then paste it onto the Ramones, basically.
Yeah. Yeah. Pretty
Um,
much.
they're not my thing because at the same time this album came out, or shortly thereafter, I discovered new wave through Elvis Costello, which cannot be the same. You cannot say the same thing about
No.
Costello's writing and recording. Um, so I was always looking for a little bit something quite a little bit less raw
Yeah.
and fundamental. And so yeah, this wasn't for me either, but it was
Yeah.
very influential at the time.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, you can't deny that the Ramones were an influential band at the time. Yeah, I mean everyone knows Blitzkrieg Bop,
Yeah, yeah,
and then when I think of the Ramones, I think of Rock and Roll High School. I Want to Be Sedated. But
yep,
even like Rock and Roll High School and I want songs like I Want to Be Sedated had more of a melodic slant to them.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
This doesn't.
yeah,
The songs range in time from like a minute and 30 to 2 minutes flat to 2 minutes 14, 2:19, 2:35. Ooh, a long song. It's not memorable for me.
yeah,
Rock and Roll High School, we were talking about before we started taping, big cult hit, PJ Souls, who was in Carrie, played Norma in Carrie. She got hers in the end, didn't she? That's another issue altogether. Uh, but yeah. Anyways, yeah, I listen to it. It's not my thing. It's not my thing. I mean, I got to tell this story. Every time I think of Joey Ramone, I think of this story. My brother and I were in a bowling alley one night down the street from my mom's place. 1:30 in the morning, this guy comes up to me from the lounge. It comes down from the lounge. They had a lounge with a bar in there. Comes down and he's tall and lanky, ripped jeans, biker jacket, long purplish tinted dark hair, the tinted sunglasses, big thick lips that would make Mick Jagger blush, and he says to me, "Do you believe in Jesus Christ?" I said, "Yes, I do. I'm Roman Catholic." He says, without blinking, "Maybe if you believed a bit harder, you'd be walking by now." And I'm like, "There's always hope, I guess, right?" What do you say to someone at 1:30 in the morning in a bowling alley like that? Right? So and then I see this guy at my local mall like a month later at the record shop, right? Anyways, whenever I think of Joey Ramone or the Ramones, I think of that guy, and he looked the same in the record shop as he did in the bowling alley. But yeah, this
oh jeez,
this album has its place. You know,
Yeah.
there's a definite, I mean, there's something here. I just don't know what. Uh, it's not something I'd go back to.
Sure.
Uh, I mean, and another quick story. Joe Strummer of The Clash saw the Ramones in concert. He said it was aggressive, in your face, relentless. It was 30 minutes flat, and then they walked off stage. 31 minutes wasn't necessary. I'm like, 29 minutes and 4 seconds isn't necessary either, but that's just me. Anyway, so
And they probably played their whole catalog in that 30 minutes.
there you go. There you go. But yeah, I mean, it's not one I would ever go back to. I couldn't do it. Couldn't do it. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we have one more album to talk about from one end of the spectrum to the other. Led Zeppelin, Presence, their seventh release, the follow up to the massively successful Physical Graffiti double album. Presence was released on March 31st, 1976, recorded in November of 1975 for Swan Song Records through Atlantic Records Distribution, Led Zeppelin's own imprint. 7 tracks in total, with a whopping playing time of 44 minutes and 19 seconds. Produced by Jimmy Page, as all the albums were. Executive produced by um, Peter Grant. Ken, your review on this album.
All right. Presence was, I think, a bit of a shock to Zeppelin fans after Physical Graffiti. Physical Graffiti, at least for me, was a monster. You've got a double album. Sure, not all songs are, 10 out of 10. But like I like to say, even the worst Led Zeppelin song is still better than a lot of bands' best songs. So, so we've got an album that's very stripped down comparatively, and
Mm-hmm.
really straightforward. Um, uh, and for me, it's a bit uneven with the songs, but uh, so it's really easy at was really easy at the time to say, this isn't such a good album. Well, not if you're going to compare it to Physical Graffiti. However, if you look at it objectively and the album within the history of what was going on in the band, it is quite a good album. Um, First of all, it starts off with Achilles' Last Stand, which holy cow, um, it just pulls out all the stops from the very beginning. Um, and like the Led Zeppelin albums, all four musicians are firing um, at full blast. All their spark plugs are just working like hell.
Yeah.
Um, you got John Bonham's drums, especially in Achilles' Last Stand. um, it just goes shows anybody else trying to do that, their arms would probably fall off. I'm a big Bonham fan, so there you go. But for me, there's two outstanding tracks, particularly on this, and one is the second track called "For Your Life." Um, uh, Jimmy Page is a master of catchy guitar licks and
Mm-hmm.
these little motifs and riffs. This one has so many different riffs. It's
Mm-hmm.
like he's got enough riffs in this one song for like 3 or 4 songs.
Yeah.
Um, Very catchy, and they really stand out because generally in rock and roll, the drummer will play very closely to what the bass player is doing.
Mm-hmm.
They call it the rhythm section of a
Yeah.
band.
Yeah.
However, Bonham always doubled and played along with what Jimmy Page was doing on guitar. So it really does bring those riffs out, those guitar riffs, because rhythmically it's being doubled by the drums. You know, you can, it's very obvious on Achilles' Last Stand, very
Exactly.
obvious on this, and the other songs on this album too. But For Your Life really stands out. The other really standout track is the fourth track, Nobody's Fault But Mine. Um, it's got that ethereal aspect that some of the earlier Zeppelin songs have, um, but it's got the drive to it also. It's got a little bit of the feel of early Led Zeppelin when they would redo those blues numbers. Um,
Yeah.
it's just I just really love that song. If ever, whenever I'm making a playlist for the '70s or my Led Zeppelin playlist, you know, those two tracks are definitely always on it. The closing track, T for One, I really do enjoy.
Hmm.
Not as much as the others, but like I said, if you look at this, if I look at this album just within its own context, yeah, it's really good. The other tracks, I mean, Candy Store Rock doesn't really do much for me. I could see it might have some commercial appeal
Well, it was
to
the single, yeah.
non-Zeppelin fans, you know, just top 40 fans. But Royal Orleans doesn't really thrill me. Hot Song for Nowhere, it's okay. So basically, I wouldn't skip any of the songs on this album. I think it's underappreciated even by me. You know, it's over the years I've learned to appreciate it and like it more and more. Because there again, I'm not comparing it, especially to Physical Graffiti, um, and the album to come after this, of course. So, uh, good album. I think for those that were disappointed by it, I think they need to give it another listen.
Hmm.
Wouldn't
Okay.
be my recommended first Zeppelin album though.
Well, I think that this album, I mean, I was reading up on this album, and although it achieved three times platinum status in, in sales, it is considered the lowest selling Zeppelin album in their catalog. This was a back to basics Zeppelin album. This was meat and potatoes, guitars, bass, and drums in terms of the musical arrangements. Aggressive as all get out,
Mhm.
balls to the wall rock. Starts off with the, Achilles' Last Stand, 10 minutes and 26 seconds with that, guitar intro that comes in, and then they're off and running. Boom! Like you're kicked in the gut, and they go for broke. Unrelenting drum pattern that comes in, and guitar passages that come in. And then on that, I guess you call it on the breakdown section, when the drums do that breakdown section and the guitars are copying what he's doing, you know, yeah, on
Yeah,
those.
yeah.
Are you kidding me here? Are you kidding me here? The guitars almost to me sound like a machine gun coming in, with the repetitive riffs that they're doing, like those little passages. The soloing is amazing. For Your Life is another good track. I should say, all of the tracks, with the exception of one, Royal Orleans, all the tracks were written by Page and Plant. Royal Orleans is the only track at 256 that is written by the entire band. No piano, no keyboards, no mellotron, no synthesizer, no nothing. Not even any, sitar or anything like that. Just unrelenting rock. And this album came about when Robert Plant was in a bad car accident in Greece on vacation. He had to convalesce and recover, and while he was in Malibu, uh, Jimmy Page joined him, and they started writing music that would become Presence. And around this time, just before this too, Robert Plant's son Carrick passed away. And anyone who knows Robert Plant, he believes that kids are part of you. They're your heart, they're your soul, they're your being, basically. And he was reeling from that loss, from the loss of his son. So a lot of the lyrics, a lot of the aggression and emotion came out in the music for this album. They recorded it in Germany, and Robert Plant was restricted to using a wheelchair to sing the vocals. And they had to go down into a recording studio, into a basement. There were no ramps, so he had to walk downstairs every day. And at one point during a take, he actually fell out of his wheelchair. And Page had to run into the into the studio and grab him and get him up. Like there was a lot of emotion going on with this album, but and it does show in the music. Nobody's fault but mine. And starting off side two, that sort of shimmering slide guitar that comes in on the intro, uh, very ethereal effect on that. And even Robert Plant's vocals on that is very guttural, very much in your face. And to have to give all that emotion and passion and anger when you're sitting down, believe me, I know. It's not that easy. Candy Store Rock, it's okay. I mean, it was a single for the album. Hot Song for Nowhere, another okay track. T for One at 9 minutes and 27 seconds. I've said this before. I think of this as Since I've Been Loving You
Mhm.
in 76. This is kind of like their version of Since I've Been Loving You. 21 seconds into the track, not 22, not 20, not 23, not 20, not 19, but 21 seconds. The tempo changes to what I call a blues tempo. Great blues guitar on this. Wonderful strong bass. A massive snare drum sound from John Bonham. Robert Plant has always said that Bonham had a lot of sex in his playing. And I am going to venture to guess what that meant, but I agree. I agree. For this one track, you do kind of feel, or I felt, that the entire band were in the recording studio at the same time doing this live off the floor with very little overdubs.
Yeah.
But there were overdubs done because Jimmy Page did a one-time, like, epic 12-hour recording session to do the overdubs in order to get this album finished on time. A tour was planned for this album, but it was quickly canceled due to Robert Plant's recovering the from his leg injury, from his operation he had to have. I need to give this album more praise, and I will. I really need to go back and listen to it again.
You
I
too.
think it's fantastic. Is every song a 10? No. But very rarely do you find an album that you like that every song is right up there. Like it's not every song is a 10 out of 10. But I would, if I was to rate this album, and I don't usually rate albums, I give this album an 8.5, which is
Yeah.
a damn solid rating.
Yeah.
And with everything they had to go through at the time with regards to personal matters and family, it's a damn miracle that this album came out at all.
Yeah.
And just a little side note, the original title was suggested by Robert Plant. They finished this album around American Thanksgiving. So he asked the record company, could we name it Thanksgiving? And that was quickly shot down by the record company and the rest of the band. And they came up with the title of Presents because they felt that there was something with them in their presence at the time of this recording, and they couldn't explain it. The album cover obviously done by legendary company Hypnosis.
Yeah.
I do think that this album needs to be praised a lot more. Achilles' Last Stand is still played on classic rock radio today, for good reason. It's a bloody good track. I'm sorry. But that's my view on Led Zeppelin Presence.
Did you say that this was the lowest selling?
Yeah,
Does that include Coda?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. For some reason, this album didn't hit as, I believe it hit number 16 in the charts in Canada. Um, and I guess for the record company, they didn't see it as a hit. There was no tour to promote it.
Yeah,
Um, I would have released a 5 minute version of, say, Achilles' Last Stand. That would have been, to me, a better representation of the album musically than, say, Candy Store Rock. But that's just,
sure.
what would you think? What do you think?
No, I agree. Yeah,
Okay.
well, I definitely agree.
Okay. All right, ladies and gentlemen, there you have it. Albums celebrating their 60th and 50th anniversaries, respectively. Take two for the month of April.
Yep.
Um, I want to thank Ken for joining me on this episode. Please put down in the comments below your opinion of these albums, even the seeds. Um, it takes all kinds. I'm telling you, ladies and gentlemen, there are no right or wrong answers,
Yeah.
just opinion. We want to get a dialogue going on this. So please let us know what you think. All right. Um, we have plenty of ideas that we're working on for shows. Uh, Ken, Bill Schuster, and I are going to be coming back with a look at country rock with a show called Outlaws and Heroes. Bill is going to be at the helm of that episode. It's an episode that he's wanted to do for some time. And I, for one, am over the moon that he is back on the channel
Yeah,
because we need Captain Bluebeard's take on things and
that's right.
his insight, because he has a lot of insight to give.
And he has a
Um,
lot of props too.
yes, a lot of props. So please stay tuned for that. We are working on more ideas, and we're going to get them to you as soon as we possibly can. All right. Please click like and subscribe and hit the notification bell to keep yourselves on top of any new idea that we got coming up, any new show. And we are also now on X. Check us out on X. And yeah, that's it for now. Please look after yourselves and one another, and we'll see you soon again on the Music Den. Bye for now.